Good morning. Welcome to Theodore Parker Unitarian Universalist Church. My name is Robin Colgrove. My family and I have been coming to Theodore Parker since the last millennium, served in a number of capacities in this church, currently a member of the Music and Worship Committee and organizer of the TPC House Band. As we enter into worship, we bring with us all of the sorrows and joys of our week, and we know that here we are held in loving community. We are reminded that we are part of something larger than ourselves. Here we seek to counter oppression, to work for healing and justice in a bruised and broken world. Here we invite all of you to bring your perspectives, your beliefs and doubts, and all that is unique and wondrous about you to our service. In the spirit of love, all are welcome here. For those joining us in person, a few things you may want to know. Our congregation is mask optional, and if you'd like to be seated in an area where others are also wearing a mask, This section is reserved for people wearing masks. You can use the QR codes either at the entrance or in your pews to pull up the order of service on your phone, or take one of the large print copies available at either entrance. Our service is being recorded today and will be available on YouTube later. If you would like to have a joy or a concern shared with the congregation today during our meditation and prayer, we invite you to fill out a card anytime before our meditation hymn on the table to your right, my left. You may also light a silent candle of joy or concern at any time during our worship service, or use the space at the far back at the corner for private reflection during the service. People of all ages are welcome to move about in the sanctuary as they need to, or to make themselves comfortable in the cozy zone in the front of the first pew. Children's programming for elementary school kids is happening today. Why not? Yes, children's program for... No, that's what I thought. Okay. During the service, children are welcome to stay with us during the service today. Our child care provider is available in the for nursery-age children in the nursery located in our parish hall. Many thanks to Jen Bottomley, who is our camera point person today, and to Deanna Wong, our Zoom usher. Or is that the other way around? That's the other way around. Sorry, Deanna Wong, our camera point person today, and Jen Bottomley, who is our Zoom usher. If you're new to Theodore Parker Church and are visiting today, we'd love to stay in touch. You're invited to fill out a connection card, which will give you an opportunity to sign up for our weekly updates and to help us welcome you. A link to the connection card will be in the chat, as well as our contact information. Those of us sitting here in the sanctuary are encouraged to fill out the contact card you'll find in your pews within the welcome brochure. We'd like to take a moment to greet one another. For those of you on Zoom, putting your video on for this time helps us connect. Deanna, if you could please put our sanctuary screen in gallery view so we can see our offsite congregation. And let's give each other a big wave. Sanctuary folks, the camera is under the clock in the back. As we greet one another, if online, you may post a hello in the chat. If you're physically in the sanctuary, we invite you to greet one another and say good morning, and please ask for consent before offering a hug or handshake. Please greet one another.
Welcome. My name is Tom Keydel, and I have participated in Poetry Sunday for some 10 years. Poetry Sunday has a long history here, and I want to thank our poetry readers and those who requested to have poems read today. It takes a village to make a service work. Poetry Sunday is our annual celebration of the written word and its ability to inspire and challenge us in new ways. This year we are using the theme of interdependence. The dictionary defines interdependence as a shared mutuality and dependence. Among Unitarian Universalists, it is often associated with the interdependent web of all existence. We share mutuality and dependence with the natural world and depend upon it to support us and maintain us in all of our human connections. In that larger sense of shared mutuality, I want to introduce our opening words today from the poet Rumi. If interdependence is a state of shared mutuality and dependence, then surely Rumi's poem, The Guest House, metaphor applies to all of us and how we understand our connection to one another. Here is The Guest House by Rumi, translated by Coleman Barks. This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice. Meet them at the door laughingly and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. Let us now move to our opening hymn. We are number 1051.
For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child is born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage and mothers of time. We are daughters of dust and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy and brothers of love. We are lovers of life and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are Spirit of God. For each child that's born, a morning star rises, sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are.
Please join us in sharing our covenant together, once in English and once in Spanish, in honor of our sibling community in Plazuelas, El Salvador. The words will be on the screen. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant.
to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
El amor es el espíritu de esta iglesia y el servicio es nuestra oración. Esta es nuestra gran promesa, vivir juntos en paz, buscar la verdad con amor y ayudarnos los unos a los otros.
We will begin with reading group 1.
My name is Ruth Kahn, and this is requested, by Nancy Wilbur. Here we go. Nancy writes, Marge Percy has accompanied me with her poetry since the 1970s feminist movement. Since her first poetry collection in 1968, she's written close to 20 books of poetry and 20 novels. I've grown with help from her loving and sometimes angry wisdom. I happened on this 1977 poem of hers only recently. It speaks to me of how sensation, which we imagine to be so individual to our own bodies, almost screams out our interdependence, our interconnectivity. There are moments when we quite literally feel each other's pain or joy in our own bodies, even though we know it really originated in the other person. The poem also reminds us not to run from that interdependence, but rather to engage fully with life, intimately, with love. It speaks to me as I age and want to live fully alive while I'm alive, and to embody love while it's still possible for me. In the Wet, by Marge Percy. How you shine from the inside, orange as a pumpkin's belly, your face beautiful as children's faces when they want at white heat, when fear pinches them, when they have not learned how to lie well yet. Your pain flows into me through my ears and fingers. Your pain presses in. I cannot keep it away. Like a baby in my body, you kick me as you stretch and knock the breath out. Yet when I shook with pain's fever, when fear chewed me raw all night, you held me, you held on. Then I was the baby past words and blubbering. The words, the comfort were yours, and you nurtured me, shriveled like a seed that would never uncurl. How strangely we mother each other, sister and brother, lovers, twins. For you to love me means you must love yourself. That is what loving is, I say. It is not pain, it is not pleasure, it is not compulsion or fantasy. It is only a way living, wide open. Now we have a poem requested by Meredith St. John. She writes, Mary Oliver is a perennial favorite in our poetry services. Here's a favorite from her book, Devotions. We can look to this poem for help, as the poet suggests, in, quote, walking, slowing, and bowing often, unquote. When I Am Among the Trees, by Mary Oliver. When I am among the trees, especially the willows and the honey locust, equally the beech, the oaks, and the pines, they give off such hints of gladness. I would almost say that they save me, and daily. I am so distant from the hope of myself, in which I have goodness and discernment, and never hurry through the world, but walk slowly and bow often. Around me, the trees stir in their leaves and call out, stay a while. The light flows from their branches, And they call again. It's simple, they say, and you too have come into the world to do this, to go easy, to be filled with light, and to shine.
Good morning. My name is Jake Bittner. My family and I have been members of TPC for just under an hour now, but have been attending for about a year. This is a poem that I wrote during Reverend Heather's Easter sermon. I apologize. As I struggled with messages of hope while thinking about the situation around the world in so many countries of violence from militaries and militias and gangs and individuals. This is an Easter poem. It often feels like love is still in the tomb, that the waiting for its resurrection is never fulfilled. Hatred, greed, and sorrow are deathless, while death is all around us. I search for the tomb of love, hoping to roll the stone away, pulling out love to resuscitate it, until the day I realized I have been the tomb. Love was laid in my heart, waiting, waiting, until I would allow its resurrection, would bring it into the world. It would not rise with great glory and triumph. It would come one to one, comforting a hurting heart, healing wounds, reminding another of their worth. There was no love out there in a tomb of someone else's garden. I am the tomb and the stone, and I am the resurrected love, if I am willing.
Good morning, everybody. It's good to see you all. So this morning I have a message for all ages, and we have a small crew of kids here today, and some are in the nursery, so it really will be for all ages. So I'm going to need some help and participation from everybody in the congregation. So this morning for our Poetry Sunday, I've been thinking about what kinds of things poetry can do for us and how poetry can speak to us in ways that are different than other kinds of mediums. And I'm curious what some of your answers to that might be. How does poetry speak to you differently than other things? Rhythms, yeah. Images. The essence. Pace. Authenticity. Simplicity. For me, it's metaphor. I think one of the other things about poetry is that it can help to draw people together, and that it's a thing that we can co-create sometimes, which feels like a very fitting thing for our month's theme of interdependence. So I was hoping that today we could write a poem together and maybe draw back to some elementary school style activities. I think I'm going to need both hands. Does this raise up?
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Great, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to give you a prompt, and I'm going to collect a couple of responses, and then I'm going to have a volunteer come up and read it. So please help me fill in the blank. Interdependence is... almost there. I didn't get everything, but. All right, interdependence feels like. I was going to say a warm blanket when I was making this activity up. What else? Helpful reliance? Healthful. Okay. And interdependence reminds me contribution. Okay. All right. Make sure whoever reads this can read this. All right. Thank you. I think this is lovely. Would somebody come up and read this for me? Anybody who maybe wanted to read for Poetry Sunday but didn't sign up in time? All right. So here's our interdependence poem. Thank you, Julie.
Interdependence is wonderful, hard, necessary, belonging, everywhere, connecting, the only way to be. Interdependence feels like a hug, a warm blanket, healthful reliance, commitment, sunshine, love. Interdependence reminds me I'm not alone. The web of life, open to others, covenant, contribution to care, those I love and those I don't love. It's about us.
Thank you, everybody. That was lovely. We're not singing our kids off to Children's Chapel today, but we will transition into a space of meditation and prayer, and kids are welcome to stay here the whole time again, or to go over to nursery care if they'd prefer. We'll transition into a space of meditation and prayer with our centering hymn, From You I Receive. And this morning we're doing Spoken Joys and Concerns. So after we sing, I'll invite people up and invite you to put things on Zoom. Let's sing together.
From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live.
So friends, we come into community to share our lives and our hearts with one another. And we do this by offering opportunities to share what is bringing us joy and what is bringing us sorrow. And in sharing, our joys are multiplied and our sorrows are lightened. And this week we have an opportunity to do this in a spoken format. Many weeks we do this in a written format, but about once a month we've been doing this with people coming up. So if you have a joy or a sorrow you would like to share, I invite you to come forward and light a candle, use the microphone. Please say your name and share briefly what is on your heart. And if you're joining us on Zoom, you can type that into the chat and I will light a candle for you.
Hello, my name is Mary Russell, and I have two friends who are having health crises. And if you could please send healing prayers to Tony and Richard, it would be much appreciated.
I'm Joy, and I have a concern. A friend of mine's granddaughter, 2-year-old Gwenny, was diagnosed with the malignant brain tumor and underwent a bone marrow harvesting, and we're praying for miracles. And as a miracle, this is my miracle, who is Camille, who is 3. She just celebrated her 3rd birthday.
I'm Ellie Jarrell. Mine's not so much a sorrow as a frustration. I'm kind of anti-technology, and I was forced to buy an iPhone the other day. And it ended up with me in tears, sitting outside the Apple store, because I felt put upon, I felt bullied by the need for this technology, because I'm going to Europe and I bought a Euro pass only to discover that I have to use an iPhone to activate it. And so I had to buy the iPhone. And I'm having all kinds of problems. And I don't cry very often. I was really in tears. So, you know, I don't know. I'll get help and I'll use the tutorials and all that. But modern technology.
I'm Kathy Ware, and I had an amazing trip this week with my son Gregory, who's a junior. We visited 8 schools in 5 days, and he's such a delight to be with, and it was amazing to watch his mind open up after the pandemic and being in the house for so long, and he's kind of an introvert, so he's home a lot. So to see his mind open, and it was amazing and very informative, and I'm so excited for him.
Hi, I'm Jessica Mink, and I have like a mixed sorrow and joy in that my mom is 97, had a heart attack, and survived without any seemingly major damage, except her body's still failing her slowly. But she also has her first great-grandchild who she hasn't seen yet in person, and so I'm hoping sort of this is a candle of hope that my mom will last long enough to meet her great-grandchild. And she's in rehab now, and her mind is fine, and it's just her body that's not always doing well, so we're hoping her mind can keep her going. But thank you.
Good morning, I'm Claire Barker. I wanted to share these words from a memorial service I went to last week for Evelyn Kyle, who died at 105. Be kinder than you need to be.
I'm Julie McVeigh. Last week I went to Florida to visit with my daughter, who has very recently, just about the time Stan died, was diagnosed with a serious liver disease. And so she had an appointment with the specialist, and we still have more testing to do and all of that to see if there are any treatments. But the physician was not encouraging, and so the likely treatment is a liver transplant. And since she's adopted, we don't have genetic relations for her to ask for a tissue donation. So if anybody knows about how that kind of stuff works, like we don't know anything. And of course the doctor will be very helpful, but I just wanted to share how worried I am about her. Kara, my daughter's name is Kara. So.
We have a few candles from our Zoom folks. From Priscilla, a joy that my sister's back operation last Thursday was a success, and she is no longer in pain, and walking upright is taking place. And from Karen Bishop, this week I was joyous about the extensive work the Boston Udema Project is doing for equity and equality in our communities. And from David Smith, a sorrow for my sister who recently lost her spouse. And for all of these joys and sorrows that we hold in our community and those that remain unspoken in the silence of our hearts, we light a final candle. And Tom will lead us in a space of prayer.
Please join together as we move into a prayer of meditation as I read an untitled poem that I wrote some 20 years ago. Pin your faith on the seed of nature. Let the sun's rays go deep into your roots, and always, always take solace in the ever-changing order that accepts you as you are, offering up to you a billion possibilities for life. Together, let us rest for several minutes in shared silence, followed by our musical meditation.
This poem was requested by Mary Robeson. Thank you, Mary. Mary Robeson writes, the vivid images in Rebecca Elson's poem takes us beyond ordinary thought. The last two lines shimmer with life and illustrate the poem's title, Antidotes to Fear of Death. Rebecca Elson is an astronomer whose life was brief. This poem can be found online via a website hosted by Maria Popova. Antidotes to Fear of Death by Rebecca Elson. Sometimes, as an antidote to fear of death, I eat the stars. Those nights lying on my back, I suck them from the quenching dark till they are all inside me, pepper, hot and sharp. Sometimes instead, I stir myself into a universe still young, still warm as blood. No outer space, just space, the light of all the not yet stars drifting like a bright mist, and all of us and everything already there, but unconstrained by form. And sometimes it's enough to lie down here on earth beside our long ancestral bones, to walk across the cobble fields of our discarded skulls, each like a treasure, like a chrysalis, thinking whatever left these husks flew off on bright wings. This is requested by Lee Hewitt, a poem by Denise Levertov. For the new year, 1981, I have a small grain of hope, one small crystal that gleams clear colors out of transparency. I need more. I break off a fragment to send you. Please take a grain of hope so that mine won't shrink. Please share your fragment so that yours will grow. Only so, by division, will hope increase, like a clump of irises, which will cease to flower unless you distribute the clustered roots, unlikely source, clumsy and earth-covered of grace. Lee writes, in this fractured world, I believe we need more hope. Hope is the manifest through kindness, compassion, empathy, understanding, laughter, and joy. Denise Levertov was a prolific poet who changed over her lifetime, becoming more politically active, especially in response to the Vietnam War. She also was known for her compassion and efforts to unite people.
In the interdependent web of life, no one is left out. It is a gift to be part of something greater than ourselves. In gratitude for all that we have been given, we accept that by our decision of faith, we are more than enough. Let us choose to offer what we can to strengthen our one shared community of faith. Ushers will be coming around to collect this morning's offering. If you are online, you may use the contact information provided in the chat. Generosity and gratitude are devotional resources that make us a stronger community of faith. As Yukiko shares our offertory music, offering will be given and gratefully received.
Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. no hell below us, above us only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for, and no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will be as one. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger. A brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will be as one.
Hello, my name is Phil Nowers. I've been a member here for about 15 years. And today I have a poem that kind of found me. Somebody loaned me a book a few weeks ago. I opened it up and there was this poem, and I couldn't get it out of my head. Every Sunday, we acknowledge a connection with the people of El Salvador and Plazuelas with a salute in English and Spanish, but most of us know little of their story. One indelible part of that story every Salvadoran knows is the memory of La Matanza, the massacre. Following anti-government protests in 1931, a new military government undertook to put down the protests by force. During the first 2 months of 1932, the government killed over 30,000 peasants, including the extermination of most of the country's remaining indigenous population. You can Google this, El Salvador 1932 massacre. This poem by Roque Dalton is about that massacre. Dalton himself was killed by his own compatriots in 1974. He was 39. I'm going to read a part of the poem, the beginning and the end in Spanish, the middle in English, an English translation of the whole poem. The name of the poem is Todos, all. Todos nacimos medio muertos en 1932. Sobrevivimos pero medio vivos. Cada uno con una cuenta de 30,000 muertos enteros, que se puso a engordar sus intereses, sus réditos, y que hoy alcanza para untar de muerte a los que siguen naciendo medio muertos, medio vivos. We were all born half dead in 1932, but we survived half alive, each one of us with an account of 30,000 dead people, fattened with interest, with profits, and which today has grown enough to spread death unto those that continue to be born, half dead, half alive. We were all born half dead in 1932. To be Salvadoran is to be half dead. What moves is the half of the life they left us. And since we are all half dead, the murderers presume not only to be totally alive, but also to be immortal. But they too are half dead and only half alive. Let us unite half dead, for we are the homeland, for your children to be able to call us in the name of the murdered. Let us unite against the murderers of all, against the murderers of the dead and the half dead. Altogether, we have more death than those, but all of us together, we have more life than them. The almighty union of our half-lives, of the half-lives of all of us who were born half dead in 1932. Todos juntos tenemos más muerte que ellos, pero todos juntos tenemos más vida que ellos. La todopoderosa unión de nuestras medias vidas, de las medias vidas de todos los que nacimos medio muertos en 1932.
Good morning. My name is Frank Lasky. I've been a member of Theodore Parker Church now for about 9 years and a UUer for about 22. My poem is by Gary Miranda. Gary Miranda, to me, is an earthy poet, sort of in the vein of Theodore Rothke. A lot of his poetry is about birds and rivers and people, in my mind, the interconnectedness and the interdependence of these national objects with human life. Gary Miranda spent 6 years in a Jesuit seminary. He was the poet in residence at the Robert Frost House in Franconia, New Hampshire. The following is a small excerpt from his 18-section poem, The World That Is Offered. This section is called The First Morning of Fathers. The First Morning of Fathers. The first morning of fathers is horizontal. It seems to go on forever. But that is because the sky, like a mother with many children, has been up the entire night pressing it out. On the Clackamas River Road, the highway bends at a clearing, and the river, which up till now has been the highway's sibling, almost a twin, looms like a train of thought that doesn't love us. It is morning. At home, a woman sleeps in our bed, alone, dreaming of rivers with many rooms, while in an adjoining room, our 1-year-old son begins to nuzzle the world, the one he lets us use when he's not using it. I think of him as the current hugs my legs and holds on tight, as if I were responsible. I think, if love were enough, life would be too easy. And I make my first cast across the river and let the line drift down and reel it in, almost invisible, but in its way the surest thing I have to anything. Birds on the river know who in the morning, not the heron so much. They're downriver pretending to be a branch. You have to imagine the sky, cross-hatched by their flight paths, thick, refined, variegated, a web they go on stitching, a safety net for the dead, to know what I mean. Even wisdom gets boring, even your own. I have lived on this planet for more than 40 years, and what do I know? There is a town called Boring, Oregon, which has its beauty. There is a town called Wisdom, Montana, where I have been. The sound of the bus pulling into Wisdom is the sound of the future snapping shut its sample case of alternatives. It is the sound of all the decisions you ever made trying to talk at once and being successful. It is the sound of the last gunslinger weeping. Meanwhile, back in Boring, a baby is trying hard to be born. His elongated head beginning to crown for the anxious doctors and nurses, his lungs rehearsing their first scream in a silence as dark as a gun barrel. But here on the river, mourning, its matter-of-fact tenderness breaks, and the birds begin again to piece it all together. The steelhead come back to the river. They are not salmon. They are not the swallows returning to Capistrano. They are, as the guidebook says, sea-going trout, though they do not believe in guidebooks or in the sea with its loud need for approval roaring like that. They believe in the river, in a certain insistent urge for which the river's a metaphor, but a good one. They believe in this so firmly that there are people who line the banks in cuneiforms of praise, trying to make themselves invisible. Somewhere else, on subways, invisible people raise one arm like this. The subway tracks run like a steel river under the city, and people rise early to line its banks. And the sound that the subway makes is like the name of the river, Clackamas. But I do not think it's praise. I do not think the steelhead are fond of praise. I do not seem to know what they are fond of. The metaphors I offer them are not the metaphors they want, or even good ones. And yet, the swallows, in spite of the tourists, return, and the subway comes, and the steelhead mouths the lure like an infant mouthing its first words, and you have only an instant to set the hook hard.
Please join us in our closing hymn, Blue Boat Home, number 1064.
Though below me I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean, still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, neither harbor nor port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. Sun, my sail, and moon, my rudder, as I ply the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companion, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the lights of the heavens in our beautiful blue boat home. I give thanks to the waves upholding me, hail the great winds urging me on, greet the infinite sea before me, sing the sky my sailor's song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home.
Please be seated. Our closing words come from the poet Rumi in his poem, A Gift to Bring You. Who exactly translated this poem is not entirely clear, which I think is almost the very point. A gift I bring you. You have no idea how hard I've looked for a gift to bring you. Nothing seemed right. What's the point of bringing gold to a gold mine, or water to the ocean? Everything I came up with was like taking spices to the Orient. It's no good giving my heart and my soul, because you already have these. So I brought you a mirror. Look at yourself and remember me.
Before I share a few announcements, I want to just say a huge thank you to Tom Keydel for organizing our Poetry Sunday this morning. And to all of our participants and poem nominators and readers this morning as well. A few brief announcements before we close. Please join us for coffee hour next door in the parish hall, or if you are on Zoom, stick around for a breakout group. And one thing is happening this afternoon. Diana's List, which is our Middle East advocacy group, is meeting in the parlor, and anybody is welcome to join. Meeting in the parlor at noon, so please feel free to join. Next week is our Music Sunday, which promises to be a delightful, delightful worship service, and I hope you will join us. And we will close with Yukiko playing 2 Highland dances by Howard Skempton.